So, this is Melissa. Hello.
Hey. Heyo.
I'm Karyn. Hello. And it is Mother's Day, and we are mothers in various stages of life. And I just really appreciated the flow of the service today. And I think the Lord is just setting up a beautiful atmosphere for the word of the Lord to go forth today. And when we speak on Mother's Day, it isn't a mother's message. You don't have to be a mom to have this message. This is a message for everyone. Anytime you open up the Word of God, it's for everyone. And so I want you to listen with ears to hear what the Spirit of the Lord is saying, because He's already been speaking so richly from the very beginning right through worship, and we're going to carry that beautiful theme all the way into the Word of God. And I loved how we ended that little beautiful prayer time, hearing the Word of the Lord, and then it was, Chris had shared about, exchanging. We laid things down at the altar, and then we were to expect something in return. And that's like the perfect intro. I don't even need to give you an intro now, because the title of our message this morning is The Beautiful Exchange. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about. First, we're going to read a lot of scripture. So either look up above or pull out your Bibles. And here we go. This is from the book of Ruth. In the days when the judges ruled, and every man did what was right in his own eyes, there was a famine in the land, and a man named Elimelech from Bethlehem in Judah left to live in the country of Moab. He and his wife Naomi, that's so funny. Naomi. Yep. Naomi and her
that's in my head. That's going to mess me
up. I know.
Dang
it. Mahlon and Chilion. Okay, for those of you who are having babies, your next sons, Mahlon and Chilion, no. But Elimelech died, and Naomi was left with her two sons. The sons took Moabite wives, Orpah, not that one either, and Ruth. Okay, you're safe. They lived there about 10 years, and then both Mahlon and Chilion died, so that Naomi was left without her two sons and her husband. Then she roused herself and her two daughters-in-law, intending to leave the country of Moab, for she had heard that the Lord had visited his people in Bethlehem and given them bread. But Naomi said to her daughters-in-law, "Go. Each of you return to your mother's house. May the Lord deal kindly with you as you have dealt with the dead and with me. The Lord grant that you may find rest, each of you, in the house of her husband." Then she kissed them, and they lifted their voices and wept. And they said to her, "No, we will return with you to your people." But Naomi said, "Turn back, my daughters. Why would you go with me? Turn back, my daughters, and go your way, for I am too old to have a husband. And if I should even have a husband this night and bear sons, would you wait until they were grown? No, my daughter. It grieves me very much for your sakes that the hand of the Lord has gone out against me." Then they lifted their voices and wept again, and Orpah kissed her mother-in-law goodbye. That word's not there, but really that's what she did. Kissed her mother-in-law goodbye. But Ruth clung to her. Naomi said, "Look, your sister-in-law has gone back to her people and her gods. Return after her." But Ruth said, "Do not urge me to leave you or return from following you. For where you go, I will go, and where you lodge, I will lodge. Your people shall be my people, and your God, my God." And when Naomi saw that she was determined to go with her, she said no more. So the two of them went on until they came to Bethlehem. And that's the well-known story of Ruth and Naomi, and probably you've heard it quite a few times. There's Ruth, and she was from Moabite. That was a pagan country. And then Naomi, she was an Israelite. She was from God's country. And because of a severe famine, they had left Israel, Judah. Bethlehem was their city, and they had gone down to Moab and in search of food there. Now, at that point, Naomi would have had no choice. Even we don't know if she wanted to go or not. Doesn't say, doesn't matter. But she wouldn't have had a choice. And if in those days, if the husband moved, the wife just moved. The end. No argument, no conversation, no discussion. You just went. But in that land, they did not find the food that they thought they were going to find. Maybe they had bread, but they had a famine of a different kind. And her husband passed away, and then both of her sons passed away. And it was very difficult for her to live in that sort of an atmosphere. And then she got news that there was bread back home in Judah. And in her heart, there began to build up a longing to go back and to have that fullness, that food again. So what captivated Ruth? Like, really? Why would Ruth want to go all the way to a foreign land to her with an old mother-in-law who was a widow. And if you know anything about the laws in Israel, you couldn't marry a Moabite, and a Moabite couldn't even go into the presence of God for the next 10 generations. So it was like, what did Ruth ever have going for her to follow her mother-in-law all the way back? And Orpah realized it, and Orpah's like, all the single ladies, I'm free. And off she went. She wanted to be free, but there was something that happened in Ruth's heart, and she shifted. And there's this principle that we're going to talk about today, and it's like, yes, it's Mother's Day, and yes, you have to be a mother in order to celebrate Mother's Day. But I'll tell you something that's more important than being a mother, and that is actually being a mentor. Okay? That's an older word now. We've been using it for a long time, and there's all different ways that you can look at it, and some of them are even kind of weird, like, would you mentor me? And it's like, that kind of just gets awkward, right? And so we're going to talk about the three characters here today, the two that really made the choices and how it applies to us. And if you look at the three, there's the Naomi and Orpah and Ruth, and there was a response that came out of each one of them when they were presented with this big choice on what to do, where to go. And for Naomi, her first response on mentoring was a reluctance. She didn't want to do it. And she looked at her own life. She said, life has been hard. And I don't know, I really don't feel like I have anything to offer you at all. There's just nothing left. It's been ripped and wrenched and wrung right out of me. True story. Then you look at Orpah, and it was just a refusal. Nope, not interested. Don't want it. Don't want to be mentored. Don't want to be a mentor. I'm out of here. And then for Ruth, it was so different. It was like, in the natural, you would think Ruth should have been the one, too, that was like, nope, I don't want any part of that. I kind of like my own country here. This is what I've known all my life. I don't want to go somewhere foreign, and I don't know if I want to follow an old, sorrowful woman to get there. But the reality for Ruth is what changed her mind, and it's like, you know what? This is not about what Naomi has to give me. It's about who Naomi serves. And there is something different, and there is something attractive, and there is something that says there is food and provision and sustenance if I follow this woman back to that place. And so she did. And so then there's Ruth. She sees that in the middle of this bitterness, that there is hope. There's a glimmer of hope for her future. There is something that says, no matter how difficult life is right now, I know that there's something better, and I know how to go after it, and I know where to find it. And Ruth's like, then show me, because I want that too.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, and as I think about these three women and the different seasons that they're in and the different walks that they're in. Were you done? Yeah. Okay. I thought I stole it.
We didn't practice, because you
Obviously.
don't practice. How weird is that?
So weird. But no, as I'm thinking about that, I think about my own life and the season that I'm currently in. And Thomas and I are currently celebrating the fact that we're going to have a son soon. I know. So crazy. Thank you. It's wild. Like, I honestly feel like it's still like they lied to us, because we wanted a son for so long. We prayed for him and sought God, and then all of a sudden they're like, he's here. And we're like, all right, we'll see. But we've been in an interesting season because last year we had been trying to have a baby and were unsuccessful for quite a while, and then finally did get pregnant, only to find out that we were miscarrying that baby. And I remember being in the hospital on December 3rd that night by myself, because the night before our daughter was in the hospital having seizures from fevers and all sorts of sickness in our house, and it was just kind of a wild season to walk through. And in that season, feeling like empty. So when you think about Ruth and the trials that she went through and how she was really sought Naomi as a mentor, and she looked at her as a mentor, man, I am a young woman who really benefits greatly from mentors in my life. But I can also relate to Naomi, who really went through a season of bitterness and a season of frustration and complete loss, right? She lost her husband and her sons. And it makes me think about that verse in Psalms 139 that says, "You knitted me together in my mother's womb." And God gave some women the ability to carry babies in their bodies, which is so outrageous, right? When we think about the fact that we can carry a full-grown human, toddler-sized watermelon, in our bodies, and then our bodies just kind of instinctually know how to, get that baby out of there. It's beautiful and outrageous and terrifying and horrific, all together in the same picture. But that's such a precious gift that God gave us. But I believe, like Karyn was saying, that God gave us a unique gift, an even more unique gift than to be able to carry children in our bodies. And that's the gift to be a mother or to be a mentor. It doesn't just relate to women, right? Men can be mentors as well. And like Karyn said, being a mother is being a mentor. And I know that there are women out there who've gone through the same thing of loss after loss or frustration after frustration when it comes to getting pregnant or that negative pregnancy test and just the heartache that comes with that and that feeling and then not being able to have a baby on the other end. But I want to come to you today and encourage you. God has a beautiful ending to your story as well. And sometimes that might mean getting pregnant. Sometimes that might mean adoption or foster care. It could look in all different ways, right? Thomas and I are so thankful that his parents chose to adopt him and give him the family that he never had. And when I think back to when I was pregnant with Hannah, I was so terrified to become a mom because I'm not a nurturing person at all. And I didn't babysit. I didn't grow up taking care of children. Thomas did, thank you, God. But I was terrified. And moms would be like, "Oh, when you have your baby, you just know. Your baby cries." Literally multiple people told me this. Your baby cries and just instinctually as a mom, you just know they need to be fed or they need to be changed. And I remember thinking oh, cool, and then Hannah was born and I had no idea how to take care of that thing, or to be a mom. She cried and I tried the feeding thing and the changing thing and she's still crying. And I'm like, it sounds like she's just crying to me. Thomas, I don't know what to do, right? It didn't come natural to me. And sometimes I think even being a mentor doesn't come natural to us, but it's a daily choice that we get to make. And equal to the decision of being a mentor or a mother, we have the choice to be mentored. We have to choose, like Ruth did to Naomi, to say, "Will you mentor me?" Even though it might be awkward, You have to make that choice to say, "I want to be mentored." And in the beginning of the book of Ruth, we see that Naomi had lost everything. She was totally empty, and her family had died. And she had these 2 daughter-in-laws, and she has to go back to Bethlehem. And she's like, "Leave me alone, right? Go away." But I don't think she was saying, "Go away because I don't want to be with you." I think she was giving them the opportunity to start their lives over. She chose compassion on them. She chose selflessness to say, if you want to start your life over without me, I'm okay with that. And I'll go on without you. The last thing she wanted was to lose her daughters as well. And it's so interesting that Ruth's name means friendship and Orpah's name means stubborn. And she's the one who chose to leave. How many of you can relate to the stubbornness that Orpah shows in this moment, right? Justin raised his hand. That's right. They got one person out there. I can relate so much to the stubbornness that Orpah's going through where she's like, I'm probably better on my own. You're right. Bye, Naomi, right? But Ruth chose, no, I want to be mentored by you. There's something deeper. There's something more. Mentors help us see the blind spots in our lives. And that's exactly what Ruth saw. She made the decision to follow Naomi, even though it seemed like there was nothing to follow, even though it seemed like there's no reason. But she told Naomi, no, your people are my people. Your God is my God. And I will follow you, and I'm going to learn from you, and I'm going to give myself to that. And she knew that there was something deeper than what was just on the surface.
Yep, she did. Now, I don't know about you. How many of you are around my age? Yeah. It's so weird to even say that. And for all of you young women, you think, what do you mean? Why would that be weird to say it? Because honestly, with all of our hearts, we still feel like you. We do. And it just shocks us. Every time we look in the mirror and think, oh my goodness, what happened? Because you feel like the very same person. The person didn't change. It's just this body thing that changes, right? And so for Naomi, you know, there she is. It's like for women in general, there are so many different seasons of life and so many different seasons that even you alone will go through, let alone all the other people that go through their things. And, you know, you're single, then you're married, then you have kids, then you have maybe no kids, then you have too many kids, then you have bratty kids. No, not us, not here. But, you know, you get into the other things, the hardship things that are, you know, that break your heart, kids that walk away from the Lord, or kids that maybe don't even want to be in relationship with you. And you've got all these things that are undercurrents that make you feel like, what possibly could I offer when I've got so many things in my own life? And, you know, even Mother's Day today, we have this nice little, you like this? It's cute, huh?
Wedding
This is where
arch.
you're going to take your pictures afterwards. You can bring your family up here. And it's, you know what? I don't even get to take a picture up here today because I don't even have my own mother here today. It's like, that is so weird. So I have 4 kids, for those of you who don't know me. I have 4 kids. Do you think one of them lives here? No, 0 of them live here. And not only do they not live here, they don't ever want to. They want to live like in Europe and Canada and Peru and New York. Okay, I hope they're watching. No. And then my mother, so I think, well, I will just lavish all this love on my mom. Most of you know my mom. She does go here. No, she takes off. She heads to Southern Oregon. Yeah, it's like, I don't even have anybody to honor today. So anyway, maybe Jeff and I will sit here and just take a picture just for the fun of it. But, you know, you go through all these things, and then there's just, it's like, how many of you ladies know what a French tuck is? Yeah, anybody who's young, it's the new way that you tuck your clothes in. Used to be you tucked your blouse into your jeans and, you know, you had a belt and all that, and you tucked everything neatly all the way around.
I super know what that is.
Do you?
Yeah. I
No,
know
you're on the
exactly
untucked stage now because you're going to have a baby. Then it was after the tuck when everything was nice and neat, then it was like everything now is the long. Everything was long. Do you remember that? Like if you've been around a while, that was like in the 90s. Everything was long and you didn't tuck anything in. Now it's the French tuck. And the French tuck means all of it hangs out on the back and then you tuck it in the front. And so all of these middle-aged women are going, you've got to be kidding me. You want me to tuck it in right here? Like this? I need a tummy tuck, not a French tuck. And it's like, not going to work. And so, you know, you're dealing with all these kinds of things. You feel like you're tired, you're out of shape, you are irrelevant, and believe me, your kids will tell you you are too. If you ever thought for a minute that maybe you kind of had it together or you were a little bit edgy, oh no, they tell you you went right off over the edge and you are not with it. So it's like, okay, I have made mistakes and I have the kids to prove it. Have you ever felt like that?
What do I do if I'm irrelevant already?
If you what?
I'm irrelevant already. My kids already think I'm lame.
Oh yeah, no, you're okay. As long as you're in youth ministry, it's the preserver for a long time.
Good.
As long as you're in youth ministry, you're cool. Don't ever leave.
We'll be here a while then.
I know.
Cool.
So the amazing thing to me is that Ruth really did desire to be mentored. It just amazes me. When anybody asks me anything, honestly, I'll just tell a little story on Melissa here. A little bit ago, it was definitely during the pandemic because we wore matching masks without even planning it, and it was pretty funny. But anyway, I had a speaking engagement, and I asked Melissa if she wanted to come along, and she said yes, she did, so that was awesome. And we went out to Washington, and I spoke. And then on the way home, she started asking me questions, and I was just answering. I didn't think a thing. But then she pulled out a notebook. And she's like writing down what I'm saying.
That's
I'm
so
like,
embarrassing.
embarrassing? No, it isn't. It's like,
I already knew everything she said. I just wrote it down.
that's exactly what I thought too. She already knows everything. Why is she writing anything down? And I'm feeling like, this is crazy. No, now I'm thinking, I better answer carefully, you know. And it's like, but what just blew my mind is that this, you know, young cute thing over here who was coming along with me would actually take time to not just listen to me and be polite, which is kind of what I expected. Of course, you should listen and be polite. But she wrote it down. And I don't know, maybe she wrote, don't ever do what Karyn did. That was a...
Dumb. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
But it was like, there has to be, on the other side, a desire for it. And here's why. Because if you desire to learn something, you are going to learn something. because it's going to draw out the wisdom in that other person. And the thing that they think they don't have, all of a sudden is tapped. And they think, oh my goodness, there's something I can do here. And they rally to it, and they answer the call. And so ladies, if you've ever have felt that, like, what do I have to give? I have zilch. If you are tapped, there's going to be this thing that happens on the inside of you where it's, I do have something to give. Now listen, I know we all want to give a lecture because there's plenty that we want to teach that younger generation. Well, let me tell you, no, don't go there. There's something deeper, and it's in you. Okay, I want to read you another thing. This is out of Titus, which is another really common one. You know, sometimes scriptures are so common that we stop using them because we think everybody's heard it. But listen to this. This is Titus 2, 3-5. It says, older women are to conduct themselves properly, okay? Not slanderers. And did you know, this is just an on the side, do you know that the word slanderers actually means devils? It's so harsh. But that's where they get, you know, Satan is an accuser. He's a slanderer. That's where they get that. So don't be a devil. Don't be a slanderer. Don't be in bondage to much wine. But teach what is good, and so train the young women to love their husbands and children, to be self-controlled, to be pure, to care for the home, to be kind, to be submissive to their husbands, that the word of God may not be reviled. That's a beautiful principle. You do have something to give. And honestly, even if it is just to say, you know what, I did that once and it didn't go well, is powerful. If you want to own it, it's powerful. Don't be afraid of the things that were difficult in your life and the mistakes you made. Even those have great value when given in a spirit of love to the next generation. Okay, then I want to read you this too. I'll get rid of all my papers now because those scriptures are so long. Okay. Here's where, I love this part because here's where this beautiful exchange takes place. And you've got this broken woman and you've got this young woman with basically no future, really. She had no future. And then these two broken women go on this journey together. And in the middle of this journey, something happens between the two of them. And there starts to be this beautiful exchange. In Ruth chapter 2, it says that Ruth went into the fields of Boaz to glean the grain left behind by the reapers. Okay, now this is something that poor people do, okay? She didn't go do this because this was her job and she was going to make a lot of money. She did this because she was poor, and that was what you did. You went behind the reapers, and whatever they dropped behind, that's what you got to live on. So she did that. And as she's doing this, Boaz comes up to her, and he says these words. He says, it's been fully reported to me all that you have done for your mother-in-law since the death of your husband, and how you've left your father and mother in the land of your birth to come to a people who you did not know before. The Lord repay your work, and a full reward be given to you by the Lord God of Israel, under whose wings you have come for refuge. And then he commanded his reapers to drop handfuls of grain on purpose for her to pick up so that she could go home full to Naomi. And then in chapter 3, here it is. Naomi comes alive, all right? Ruth comes home with all this grain, and she sees it. And where have you been, my daughter? It says, and she says that she was, in the fields of Boaz gleaning. And then she says these words, shouldn't I seek a resting place for you? All of a sudden, it was like, I do have something big to offer you. I have a heritage. You don't realize this. In fact, I hadn't even thought of it. I have a heritage. I am related to Boaz, and he's like super rich. Did you know that? And it's just like it awakened within her. So she said, shouldn't I seek a resting place for you that it may be well with you? Boaz is our relative, and he just so happens to be winnowing barley at the threshing floor tonight. And then she gives this great advice. So go, take a shower, put on some perfume and your pretty clothes, and go down to the threshing floor and go lay at his feet. And Naomi, after she says that, Ruth is like, seriously? You want me to go sleep on a dirty barn floor with an old man? You got to be kidding me. Like, Mom, that's a little too far, okay? But no, she says, all you say, I will do. She followed Naomi. She followed God's provision. And it wasn't just that she was willing to follow Naomi's direction, where she was going, but also her instruction. There's a difference there. And so she followed the direction, but she also followed the instruction, because that part took obedience. The first was just the desire of her own heart. I want this thing, I'm going after it. But then when the commandment came, and it was an odd one, now she has a choice. But she chose as well to receive the instruction. And in obedience, she regarded that and said, hey, this is going to be provision for my life, and it's going to be enough for Naomi too. And it got turned around, and she ended up blessing Naomi. So there's Naomi. When she realizes what Ruth needs, it's like, I have it. She realized, I have it. And in her determination to secure rest, which is a key word in that whole book, if you read it again, this rest and this reward for Ruth, it brought them both out of famine, and it brought them both into abundance. And that is a pretty cool exchange. Your turn.
Yeah, it's so good. Yeah, it's so interesting that it kind of flip-flops, right? It starts with Naomi, and then it kind of transitions here that we see even in the natural where Ruth is providing for Naomi. And when she goes to the fields to collect food for her and Naomi, we see a couple of different things happening. So it says in Ruth 2:2, and Ruth the Moabite said to Naomi, let me go to the field and glean among the ears of grain after him, whose sight I shall find favor. And she said to her, go, my daughter. Now in that, her going to the field to glean, there's a couple different things that we see happening here. And the first thing is we see Ruth asking Naomi for permission. She says, hey, is this a good idea to glean in this field right here? And Naomi, as her mentor, is like, yeah, go ahead. I'll give you permission. And it makes me think about my life and how many hardships I've been through and how many things I could have avoided had I just asked a mentor, is this a good idea? Is this what a wise person would do, you know? And sometimes I think in our own lives we choose not to ask for counsel or not to ask for the truth because we know it, but when we hear it, it holds us accountable. And it makes us uncomfortable sometimes. And, you know, if we could just remain blissfully unaware, right, of what's going on, everything is fine. I don't know right from wrong. It doesn't matter what decisions I make. Which is so untrue, right? Because the decisions we make have affect our lives. And Thomas and I are great examples of this because Thomas is an extreme rule follower, like extreme. Like if he agrees with the reasoning why behind that rule, you shouldn't do this because of whatever, he's like, oh, I'll never do that again. Like in that moment, he just makes the decision. And I feel like rules are more like, they're suggestions from people who like hate to have fun, you know? Like Thomas, for example. Just kidding. Jokes. He's fun. But often I really have to pay for it in my life because I end up having to learn the hard way on a lot of things that would have just been so much easier had I just listened to someone who's a little bit smarter than me or who has gone through it or who sees around the corner, hey, that's probably not a good idea, you know? And instead of flying by the seat of my pants and just doing whatever I want, maybe take a second to listen. And that's what Ruth is doing here. Hey, Naomi, is this a good idea? And then the second thing we see is that Ruth is contributing what she can. So she might not have all the wisdom. She might not have any finances. She might not even know directionally where they're going physically and, you know, for their lives. But she can provide something. And in this, she's trying to help provide food. And even in your young age, you have something to give. Wherever season you're in, you have something to give. You might think, I'm only 12. You know, what do I have to give? God has something in you that you can give to other people. And we can be mentors in that. And so, like Karyn was saying, there's that exchange happening on both ends where Naomi's giving to Ruth and Ruth is giving to Naomi. And then the third thing we see here is just an example of Ruth's faith. And we see it all throughout the book of Ruth from the beginning to the end, but it just kind of grows as the story goes on. And what I want to focus on is just the verbiage that she uses in verse 2 when she says, in whose sight I shall find favor. It's not like, well, maybe if we happen to find something, you know. She's saying, no, I'm going to find favor. We're going to find favor. Did she have favor in her life before this? No. She lost her husband. She lost her family. She's left with nothing. She's following this lady, you know. But she's speaking in faith saying, I'm going to find favor. Why? Because our words matter. The things that we say are so powerful. Last year, we were teaching our 6-year-old how to ride a bike, and she was just getting so frustrated. It was the end of the summer. It was like the last day. It was supposed to be nice. And Thomas is like, it's probably time to call it. She's not going to get it. And I was like, let me just try one more thing. So Hannah, our daughter, is like a words of affirmation girl. We speak life into her, and she just lights up, Yeah, I am awesome, right? I do know how to do that. And so when we're teaching her how to ride a bike, I walk out there, and she's so frustrated, like on the verge of tears. And she's like, I can't do this, Mom. I don't know how. I'm not a bike rider. And I'm like, whoa, that's where you're wrong. You are a bike rider. You know how to ride this bike. We've talked about it. Dad pulled up YouTube videos, right? We've researched it. We've told you how to do it. We've shown you. You know how to ride a bike. Just because you haven't doesn't mean you can't. And she's like, oh, I guess I can. I'm like, no. I want to hear you say I can do this. And she's like, I can do this. I'm like, no, Hannah. I need to hear you say, I can ride a bike. And she's like, I can ride a bike. I'm like, no, when the coach is in the background of their, or like, what's that called? I super know football. What's that? In the huddle, yeah, and he's pumping them up, and he's like, we can do this, and they're like, we can do this. That's what's happening here. So Hannah and I are out, we're outside. Thomas is just watching this whatever happen, and I'm like, I have to stand up. My hand's on her chest, right? You are a bike rider. And she's like, I'm a bike rider. I'm like, louder, let me hear you. I'm a bike rider. We're both like celebrating like psychopaths, like she had ridden this bike. Had she ever ridden a bike? No. But we're telling her, And I'm like, you're going to get on that bike. I'm going to push you as hard as I can. And you're going to pedal. And you're going to ride this bike. And she's like, I'm going to ride this bike, She gets on the bike. I push her. And what happens? She takes off. She becomes a bike rider in that moment. Why is that? Because our words matter. What we say matters. And Ruth caught this. She was like, man, I'm going to speak faith to this moment right here. In my death, in my misery, in my frustration, I will find favor. Speak life to your current tragedy. Are you going through a painful divorce? Speak life over that relationship. Are you frustrated with your relationship with your kids? Man, speak life over your kids. There's outrageous power in our words.
So there they are now. Let's go back to the barn floor, that dirty barn floor with the old man. Wow. I know. So here we are, centuries later. That just is like the weirdest story ever. Who would ever go and lay down at the feet of some old guy and then when he wakes up in the night say, hey, can you cover me? It's like, it's so bizarre. And just as bizarre, can you imagine being an old man? Oh, don't imagine this. And this beautiful woman is at your feet like, oh, baby, this is my dream come true. He must have thought he was dreaming. Like, really, he must have thought he was dreaming. But this weird thing happens, and if you want to go back into, it's kind of this twisted thing of what they called in the Bible the levirate law, and it really was a thing. And you could take the place of somebody else because of the heritage and the inheritance that was coming, and it was all A-okay, all right? So this wasn't as weird to them as it is to us. It was a little bit odd, though, odd enough that he was surprised, and it was like, okay, there's a woman. She's at my feet. She's really young. She's really beautiful. Who are you? Like, why are you in my grain bed? He wasn't even in bed. He was sleeping on the heap of grain, and there's this pretty girl. But she says, I'm Ruth. Will you cover me? And he knew exactly what that meant. And it didn't just mean, hey, I'm freezing cold here in this cold barn. Can you give me a blanket? It was totally beyond that. It was cover me. It was provide for me. Will you marry me? It was a proposal. She actually proposed to him. And the beautiful thing is, he took her up on it and said, absolutely, I will. And I know all that it entails. And then he protected her from that very moment. He said, stay here for now. And then right before dawn, get out of here before anybody sees us, okay? And so they did, and he did. He literally then physically covered her with his garment so that she would be warm in the cold, drafty barn. And they did. I don't know how they slept. They probably didn't even sleep at all. They probably just laid there in the dark thinking, what have I done? What have I done? What is this? But then comes dawn, and she did. She went out, and again, he loads her up with more food, sends her back home, and she tells Naomi, well, I did it. I did everything you asked me to do. And then she says, don't worry, he will not delay. He's going to make this thing happen. And that's the miracle part. This is where Jesus comes in, guys. You know Jesus is going to come into the story. He always does. And Jesus is actually pictured as what this is called as the kinsman redeemer. Such a funny phrase, a kinsman redeemer. We would never say that phrase, but a kinsman is just that. It's somebody who's related to you, and the redeemer is somebody who has the power to save you, okay? So for Naomi and Ruth, who were destitute, could not work to earn a living, had to go behind grain reapers and pick up the leftovers in order to survive, this person comes in and says, I can save you. I can get you out of the situation. I can provide for you. I can take care of you. And I am the one who can do it because we're related, all right? And the heritage then all continues within that family. The beautiful legacy and the inheritance stayed there. And so, again, it was so important to them, but they understood it. We think it's kind of funny. They thought it was absolutely cool, miraculous, and the best thing ever. So here it is. That's what Jesus does in our lives as well. It's like we're doing our best here, trying to make this thing work, looking for a way to survive life, going behind the reapers and picking up the leftovers. Have you ever been in that situation before where you feel like that's been your life, just picking up the leftovers in order to survive? And Jesus comes in at that very moment and he says, I am going to provide for you. I am going to cover you. I'm going to take care of all your needs. And not only are you going to have enough to eat and warm blankets and a house to live in, but you're going to have a heritage and a destiny. And it's beautiful. That's the miracle part, and that's what Jesus does for every single one of us. And so when we ask ourselves this, we look at our whole situation, and there's questions we say, what in my life right now do I have that can greatly bless someone else? And, of course, always your first impulse is to say, well, nothing really, not really. But then you also have to ask yourself a second question, because in all stages of life, we are both the mentor and the mentee. Okay, that is a word too. And you have to ask yourself, what can I learn from somebody else who's going through something similar, who understands where I am and what I'm dealing with and can speak life to my situation? And as you do those two things, as you begin to look for those you can minister to and also those who can minister to you, in the midst of that beautiful exchange, Jesus shows up. Every time Jesus shows up. And the end of the story is so beautiful because they do get married. Yay, happy ending. They get married. They have a baby. And this baby is Obed. And you think, okay, who's Obed? Obed is the grandfather of King David. And King David is the kingly line all the way to Jesus. And so here it is. Naomi thought, okay, you can come with me, Ruth, because I'm going to show you where there's bread, and we will get out of this famine place, and we'll survive. And that was about as good as it was going to be. And then Ruth in the return is, well, Naomi, I can pick up the gleanings, and I'll bring them back to you, and we can at least eat. That's what they were going to do for each other. But it ended up that Naomi's like, no, Ruth, you know what? I'm going to give you a heritage. It's going to knock you off your feet. You're going to marry the richest guy in town. And you are going to have everything, land and money and a husband and all these things. And Ruth turns around and says, and you know what I'm going to give you, Naomi? Grandbabies. You're going to have a whole family again, babies in your arms. And they put that little baby Obed in Naomi's arms, and she looked down at him. And do you know what his name means? It means a nourisher of your soul. And that's exactly what that baby did. It nourished her famine-starved soul and fulfilled all those dreams. She was never going to have kids again, right? She already said, I'm too old. And if she was never going to have kids, she certainly wasn't going to have grandkids. And here she is holding this baby and having this beautiful promise to her of destiny. And here she is having this beautiful promise to her of destiny, all because Jesus came into the middle of it. And so as we end today, I want you to really think about what you have in your life that you can give out to another, and what you can learn and receive from somebody else who has walked before you and you can bring that into your life. And in the middle of that beautiful exchange comes the power and the redeeming love of Jesus, who changes everything and gives you a destiny and a future and a heritage that will bless you all the days of your life. Let's stand.